Hi, I'm Ludwig from Germany. Before we start, this might be our last video on this YouTube channel. I'm planning to shift over to YouTube, so please come and check me out there. So, now let's continue our interpretation of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Remember that this is just an interpretation with no claim to absolute validity or exclusivity. There may well be other logical and coherent and thus valid interpretations. I hope my interpretations are enlightening and inspiring to you. So, in this video, following our considerations regarding the meaning of the death of the renegade orc Gorbak in Minas Morgul and Frodo's following escape, we are going to look at another major breakthrough for mankind that the future might hold for us. It is about the meaning of the death of the king of the Ringwraiths, who is defeated unexpectedly and unhoped for by Princess Éowyn, who confronts him valiantly. Éowyn's fight against the king of the Ringwraiths symbolizes decades of selfless efforts of many people and organizations in a desperate and mostly hopeless and seemingly futile battle against the global deep state that has been brutally oppressing all solutions for the mitigation or improvement of the fate of mankind that the deep state did not approve of. Éowyn kills the Ringwraith's flying dragon first and then proceeds to kill the king himself. That means we will first overcome our fear of the power of the deep state and then the global deep state itself. Concurrently with, or just before the death of the flying dragon, Frodo's escape from Minas Morgul also symbolizes overcoming fear. Minas Morgul, as well as dragons, are symbols of fear and terror. If the end of the global deep state is really coming, it will go back to two causes. First cause, the power battle between the global deep state and the US deep state, symbolized by the battle of the two orc factions, Shagrat against Gorbak in Minas Morgul. According to Tolkien's foresight, this power battle should soon end with the defeat of the US deep state, symbolized by Gorbak's death. Possibly already in 2019, that we could already begin to suspect coming with the election of Donald Trump as US president. Second cause, the awakening of mankind to selflessness in our efforts to achieve a better world for all people on this planet. This selfless endeavor is symbolized by Princess Éowyn's battle. The global deep state has leveraged the awakening patriotism that awakened people's readiness to serve selflessly for the liberation of the USA to bring their man, Donald Trump, to power in their fight against the US deep state. In this game of chess to both defeat the US deep state and continue disempowering mankind, the global monetary elite will ultimately have to sacrifice their queen, their global deep state, to be able to beat the king of the renegade self-serving US deep state. To illustrate the sacrifice of their queen further, let's specify the two items above. The plan for the submission of mankind intends to abolish all national borders and the historically grown peoples and races. Initially, there is to be no more white race, no white Americans, Canadians, Germans, French, Englishmen, etc., and no more genuine peoples at all. Over the last decades, the global deep state had to deal with two major global problems that might have become too much for them at large. First, the renegade US deep state who wanted to achieve power over mankind for themselves, Gorbak and his orc gang, and Second, the awakening of patriotism along with our collective spiritual awakening, people's love for their grown culture and country and their awakening gratitude for the good that their ancestors have won and gained for them. Spiritual awakening has the effect that people become increasingly aware that the grown culture of a nation is a precious gift, the preservation of which is worth fighting for. Éowyn's fight against the king of the Ringwraiths. In their game of chess for the enslavement of mankind, the global deep state ultimately had to leverage the patriotism awakening in the US and in Europe, which they do not like at all, to place their man, Donald Trump, at the top of that patriotism to defeat the US deep state. They were forced to exploit the awakening patriotism and thereby to let it have its way. Although Trump is not genuine, he's no patriot but a deep state globalist, his upcoming victory over the US deep state will, according to Tolkien's foresight, also entail a defeat of the global deep state, as they are forced to let patriotism have its way, to acquire the loss of control over humanity's collective mind, and thereafter to sacrifice their deep state, first in the US, then worldwide. So as soon as Trump has won this battle against the US deep state, it will be good news for mankind. For overall, Gorbak's death in Minas Morgul, the defeat of the renegade US deep state will open the door for Frodo's escape from Minas Morgul, the liberation of our common sense from the control by the mainstream media, as well as for Éowyn's victory over the king of the Ringwraiths, the end of the global deep state. In The Lord of the Rings, these two events are not connected in terms of one contributing to the other. But when you understand the symbolism, you can see the causal connections. Gorbak's death may be the most crucial event in the whole of The Lord of the Rings. And that means the upcoming defeat of the US deep state against the global deep state may well be the most decisive event in human history towards developments that may ultimately lead to the liberation of all people who shoulder their responsibility and knowingly support these processes and go along with them. After the loss of their power apparatus, the global deep state would have to continue their game of chess for the enslavement of mankind without their queen. And indeed, that cannot be to their liking and may well demonstrate clearly for the very first time that not everything goes as the global deep state plans and wants. The US deep state has emerged as a part of the global deep state. Initially, they themselves were only a chess piece created as such by the global monetary elite. Gorbak is Sauron's org. All elements that the US deep state have been using for their battle for supremacy over mankind are elements of the global deep state. They themselves are just a renegade faction of the global deep state. The deep state's victory over the US deep state will ultimately be possible only because they have been mobilizing the awakening people of the US for the battle against the deep state in the US. And of course, it is paramount that we continue pulling the deep state's dark machinations to the light to make them end. So the judicial efforts to bring the criminals belonging to the US deep state to justice should not end. It can even be assumed that the global deep state would prefer to finish the US deep state off quietly and secretly and that they do not really want tribunals. For such tribunals bring the global deep state's kind of global rule to the light of day. So presumably, the global deep state will only reluctantly let the sealed indictments pass to get the US deep state out of their way for good, because the Americans will continue to urge bringing the criminals to justice, what you Americans will hopefully do. That will then mean that the entire fashion of the US deep state's rule, their blackmailing, their pedophilia, their satanic human sacrifices, and the orchestrations of all those things by secret societies will be shifted into the general public's awareness. This sort of rule will then end not only in the US but also in Europe and worldwide. Soon, at some point in the years to come, the global deep state may hopefully have to renounce this type of rule that they gradually created from the 15th to the 18th century, by which they imposed their will over mankind, because the light of public awareness will be shed on it. This is the sacrifice of the Queen in the global monetary elite's chess game for the enslavement of mankind. They can disempower us only if they remain invisible. And after the public disassembly of the US deep state, they can ultimately remain invisible only if they fully sacrifice their global deep state and withdraw themselves from it. They will then be among those pointing their fingers at the evil criminals, and among those who will deal the final death blow to the criminals who defected from their rule. They and their representative will spearhead the good guys. It might well be that the global deep state considers orchestrating a military coup in the US to remove the US deep state and establish a dictatorship at the same time. It might well be that they consider a cash abolition in the course of removing the US deep state from power, namely in the name of the victory of the victory over the elites and the now successful fight against poverty in the world. They will surely attempt to leverage the end of the US deep state for their agenda in this way or through similar maneuvers. However, according to Tolkien's foresight, they must likely either renounce all of that, or all their chess moves are seen through by too many people and do not achieve the deep state's targets. In the end, they will have to sacrifice their deep state globally if we counteract their moves accordingly. If the global monetary elite must sacrifice their global deep state to be able to stand on the side of the good guys working for the liberation of mankind, or to be able to lead them respectively, many things that have been oppressed for such a long time will come to light and become available to the general public. Therefore, along with the downfall of their global deep state, the global monetary elite will likely also lose control over the education, medical, and energy sectors. We will increasingly liberate our collective thinking. Alternative medical treatments will spread and alternative energy technology will thrive, replacing current technologies. This will herald the end of oil, coal, gas, atomic power, but also of wind and solar power that will all be replaced by more efficient and much cheaper, environmentally friendly energy sources. With the suppression of efficient alternative energy technologies, the taxation of carbon dioxide has just been an additional source of income for the monetary elite, who grab those taxes by our interest payments for the public debt. However, with the focus on spreading efficient alternative energy technologies, The taxation of carbon dioxide will earn them no more money because oil, coal and gas will disappear naturally as energy sources. The earth is no inanimate lump of clay, but a living being communicating with mankind who lives on it. When Mother Earth sees that a door is opening for mankind, finally opening our heart for her plight that we do to her, it may well be that nature increasingly shows us signs of her degradation by man so that we become active for her sake. We must stop dumping plastic waste into the oceans and remove the plastic in them. We must allow life in the oceans to recover from the brutal abuse by man. We must stop deforestation. We must start campaigns to reforest the earth on a large scale. Healthy oceans and enough forests are the two things that Earth will need above everything else to be able to recover and recuperate. And I suspect that she will show us as soon as the door for it is opening. That means as soon as the global deep state has been disempowered. Then our sense of powerlessness, that there is nothing we can do for the earth, will end. That sense will end, and we will be able, and I would add compelled, to become active for her rescue and for the rescue of all of us. Frodo and Sam see the death of the king of the Ringwraiths in the distance. They see the devilish black energy blanket being torn open that had cloaked Middle-earth for so long and had not allowed any light to come through. This devilish black energy blanket symbolizes the sum of the measures the global deep state has been taking since the post-World War II decades to darken the human mind and poison our health. Contamination of our food through toxins in agriculture, of our atmosphere through chemtrails, for alleged weather manipulation, of the environment by microwaves and dangerous technologies such as HAR. Tolkien represented all of this by this black cover above Middle-earth, as all of this darkens our mind. Through the end of the monetary elite's global deep state, we will be able to free ourselves from those scourges, and the black cover above Middle-earth will tear open and be blown away. The insects' population on the earth should also recover when all of this ends. Not long after World War II already, Tolkien symbolically promised us all these positive developments in this very chronological sequence, straight from a sheer hopeless situation. Although we are heading to such positive developments, according to Tolkien's foresight, they are no surefire success. We will not achieve anything that we do not commit to and take responsibility for. Tolkien has shown us an opportunity we may take, not surefire certainty. The door to take that opportunity has already been opening more and more. The global deep state will surely attempt to use their victory over the US deep state to further their agenda. Therefore, the battle to liberate mankind must not end. Unlike everything you are told, even by most of the alternative media, the US deep state is not the global deep state. It is only a split-off part of the global deep state. While it may look as though the deep state has been defeated, the worst global criminals will continue. The victory of the US deep state will even make the global deep state stronger if we do not push for its dissolution. The time to finally lean back and rest will be nowhere near after the defeat of the US deep state. The struggle for a more human world and the liberation of mankind will continue even after that breakthrough. So, to summarize, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings has predicted a chain of breakthroughs towards mankind's liberation for the coming years. The first breakthrough should be the defeat of the US deep state. Afterwards, we might overcome the control of our collective mind by the mainstream media and liberate our common sense. Frodo's escape from Minas Morgul. And because of these two breakthroughs and due to the selfless endeavors of countless patriots, heroically fighting for the liberation of their respective people and mankind, we should also be able to disempower the global deep state. All of these three breakthroughs will become possible in the coming years if we make good use of the accordingly emerging opportunities for our liberation. In the next video, we will leave our interpretations of Tolkien's symbolism and reflect more on the possibly upcoming end of the global deep state, its connections and implications. In the 7th Tolkien video, we will reflect on the meaning of the One Ring and Mordor in the world around us, which is our monetary system. We will need to understand that symbolism for our last Tolkien video, where we will cast a look at the time after the upcoming global breakthroughs, which is symbolized by Frodo's heavy march through Mordor. It seems that even after the upcoming breakthroughs, some of the worst is yet to come for mankind. However, before we get to the last two videos of our Tolkien series, we will cover a series of videos on our monetary system. That series will then help to understand the 7th Tolkien video, which will cover the One Ring, meaning our global monetary system. That's it for today. Please check my channel on YouTube if there are no more videos on YouTube, but I might also continue here. Let's see. Remember, we can create in this world only what is within us. If we want peace in this world, there must be peace within us first, in our own mind. Like, share and subscribe. If you have questions or ideas, leave me your comments in the section below. See you.